5 years ago to this day, my family and I made the move from Washington to Alaska. We took a ferry from Bellingham, Washington, to Haines, Alaska, and from Haines we drove on through the Canadian border. The drive was insanely beautiful, but traveling with small children through the last frontier, where there's miles and miles of absolutely nothing, can feel a bit eerie and unsettling. Our children had never had to use an outhouse before. Their ages at the time were 10, 5, and 15 months. The two eldest are my daughters, Holly and Iris. They had been doing so well on our journey so far, but we had passed the last gas station a little over 3 hours ago, and both girls needed a bathroom break. We pulled off at an outhouse, and I got the girls out of the van. I went into the outhouse first to be sure that it was clean enough and safe. I decided it would have to make do. I walked the girls over to it, and I had to do a pep talk trying to convince my children that it was okay to use the outhouse, and there was no other option at the time. As I was pleading with the kids to just use the darn outhouse, I noticed a thick fog rolling in. It caught me off guard because it had been a beautiful, clear day. My children also noticed the fog, and of course it made them feel more and more uneasy as it rolled in, and it seemed to thicken the air in minutes. I hollered over to my husband and said, "Hey, do you think a storm is rolling in? Do we have service through this area to check the weather app?" My husband shouted back, "No service. What's the holdup over there?" I turned to the girls with my mommy means business face, and I said, "If you won't go in here, you're going in the woods. We have 5 minutes, and then we have to get back on the road." Both girls, annoyed and hesitant, said, "Yes, Mom." We ventured out behind the outhouse, through some trees and bushes, and it opened up to a small clearing. I figured that between the thick forest and the fog, surely no one driving by would see us. My eldest daughter, Holly, went first. Then time for Iris. Iris absolutely hated peeing in the woods, and, to my anticipation, started crying and refusing to go. Just as I was losing my patience, thunder clapped hard in the distance. That only made things worse for us. Iris now sobbing and scared, I gave up, and I decided we needed to head back. As I turned back in the direction of the outhouse, I caught a glimpse of what I thought at first was a dog. It only took a split second for my brain to register that there was no way someone's pet would be all the way out here, in the middle of nothingness. I reached behind and I grabbed both girls by the arm and I hushed them. They looked at me in horror and started scanning their surroundings, as well as myself. I lost sight of it, and we started moving again. I then heard the snap of a branch and let out a gasp. We stopped frozen in our tracks. The fog was so thick it seemed unnatural. Iris started shaking uncontrollably. I looked down at her, and my adrenaline shot through my body as if fire had spread through my veins. I followed Iris's terrified gaze to the faint makeout of a tree, and standing aside from it, a washed-out outline of a man standing. But this man had an odd, animalistic shape, and what looked like fur. Just as I noticed this creature, so did Holly. She let out a terrified cry, and the creature hunched down into the stance of a wolf. I grabbed onto both my girls and ran as fast as I could. almost dragging my children through the thick bushes. The creature let out a howl so loud I swear it must have been an arm's reach behind us. We made it past the outhouse now and into the parking lot. I could see our van, and I was praying that my husband and baby were safe in the van and the doors were unlocked. Just 5 feet now from the van, I made the mistake of looking back. What I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. The wolf-like creature was no longer a wolf. It was running upright like a man, but was at least 9 feet tall. Eyes bright orange, and his face snarled with pure evil and sinister. My husband could hear the children crying now, and just as we reached the van, he threw open the sliding van door. I picked both girls up and at the same time threw them in, then threw my own self in. Right as I slid the door shut, the creature slammed its body into the door. The force was so strong the van lifted off the ground and slammed back onto the pavement. The creature let out a sickening shriek, and as I peered through the window, I could see the outline of it limping back into the tree line. We drove and did not stop until we had to for gas, and as soon as I stepped out of the van, I threw up. I felt faint, my adrenaline completely shot. We drove in silence and fear the rest of our journey, and I don't think I'll ever be stepping foot in the forest again.